Well, hello and welcome to ILoveGay today. And we are here with somebody that I've come to know over the years in my conference world. And we are here with Matteo Ceurvels. How are you, Matteo?
I'm well, Matt. How are you today?
Fantastic. It's fun to catch you here. I know that we recently connected in New York, but in between all that time, you were just one of those folks that I would always see on the LGBT business conference circuit, especially in New York.
Yes, that is correct. It's crazy to see how much time has gone by too since all these events.
I
Yeah,
know
I
because
feel like
there's
we're in such a bubble of time. It's crazy.
and especially in the LGBT world, there's so much less. I mean, I know we're not producing the one we were, but you don't see as many. But I think it's because even in that segues into the world you're in, and it's part of eMarketer and all the things you do. But it seems like so much has really segued into also kind of moving from the real world conference world into so much more virtual, just connections through LinkedIn and so forth. And you seem to be right on top of all of that.
Yes, and I have to say, I mean, I do think it is great to see these hybrid type of events too, with all, especially for someone who, I mean, I always prefer the in-person, but when you're inevitably double booked with meetings that you just can't get to all the panels you want to see. So having that option to stream it later is always, I think, an excellent way to
Yeah.
casually catch up at your own time on everything you did miss.
Not to overdo that part, but I would almost say like I think there's a whole new mix because of the fact that conferences that I know that I choose to go to, they need to be more impactful because before that would just be kind of a great touch point, and we would go to these things around the country, around the world, and connect with people and say, hey, this is what this is what I've been up to over the last year. But I think people know now, like when they see you on LinkedIn and other social media, it's like they're up to speed with what you're up to, and they're able to kind of take those conversations to the next level. And I know for me personally, like I try to focus on going to conventions and conferences where those conversations can be taken to that next level.
Agreed. No, 100% agree. I think that's always how do you add value? And it's always, even when you're posting something or as content creators, you always wonder, like, are people actually seeing these things? And then you connect in person. It's like, oh, I saw this post you did about so it's just so I want to talk about more about, it's always a nice feeling. I was like, okay, people do read, see and read things. It just doesn't go into the void of the internet.
Exactly. But no, you covered something really interesting because you're both in the analytics and research world, but also a digital trends journalist. But I think it's interesting. It's you cover really for Latin America and Spain, but you're based in New York, so you've got really kind of a unique vantage and viewpoint, I think, from there.
No, agreed. And I think, it's interesting to see being in New York where a lot of things are always happening here. So you see kind of what's playing out in, say, the advertising space or what's being talked about in the advertising space, say, in New York. And then usually LATAM is about 4 to 5 years behind in some respect, depending on the trend at hand. So it's
Yeah.
kind of a good glimpse into what we could expect there. So as someone who needs to keep his pulse on, all these things happening, it's good food for thought and then to see how it plays out in the region. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I think a good example, retail media, as those in the commerce and marketing space, that's been the hot button topic du jour. Be it in-store retail media in the US and then in LATAM, it's just really taken on it's really just taken the region by advertising industry by storm there and just such rapid growth and acceleration since I began covering it. So and then when we look at the actual numbers, this is like the fun part of being that dual role of part analyst, part journalist. Since I started covering it, you see how just in data how it really it's accelerated and how it actually is following a trajectory similar to that of the US. So it's a fun, I have to say, it's a fun role.
Well, I must say, and I'll deviate for a moment. It's that big smile you just had on your face, saying it was a fun role. I think that's one of my big takeaways from you. You're always smiling, and you have this positive energy everywhere you go. And I think that's a big part of why we're still hanging out here together.
I mean, listen, life, I think if anything, if COVID taught us anything, is that life is too short. There's no room to be negative about things. You have to wake up, put your best foot forward, and then that's all you can hope for in this world.
I hear you. No, I love it. And but how did you get into this? I mean, did you was this always something that you'd planned for when you were off in college and so forth, or how did you get into this world?
Very by accident. I feel like anyone in marketing advertising, it's always I have yet to meet people that I'm like, yes, I studied marketing and I want to do marketing and I have yet to meet anyone. Usually it's something, oh yeah, I studied geography or I studied, something completely unrelated. And all of us are here with these not useless degrees, but I enjoy my degree, but useless degrees that have nothing to do with it. But we are, alas, with marketing. But
Yes.
I mean, initially when I started off, it was more. I initially wanted to be a translator. Given the languages I speak, I think no one was surprised by that career path at first.
Yeah.
Then I was a translator, realized very quickly that I absolutely hated it, had a bit of a existential crisis. I'm like, okay, well, now what? What do I do? If I'm not doing this, now what? So I really got into the world of political economy and started doing that a bit, working with a variety of different think tanks, government entities, dabbled in finance a little bit. And then from there, I had a friend who was very into the marketing, media, broadcasting world. So she was doing a lot of freelance work with some clients, branding and video production. But and then it was kind of like we kind of merged. She had the creative mind, I had the business mind. So we started a company, worked on that, and this was back circa 2013, 10 years ago now. Wow. Woo, time is really going by. But that was during that time when those corporate videos, 2 to 3 minute corporate videos were in vogue and everyone wanted a corporate video. So that's really what we focused on. And then as analytic tools got better, when you saw the likes of Facebook, even YouTube, Twitter, you actually had the analytics dashboard, you could actually start seeing kind of audience segmentation, targeting, and that was the way we helped businesses kind of really engage in the online world. I mean, now you joke about it and laugh about it, just such an everyday part. But back then, it's like talking like years, like another century. But back then, 10 years ago, that was, a really revolutionary thing and how to target. So all that said, I had kind of went into a part of entrepreneurial burnout, and I was like, I need something different. So I was actually a subscriber to eMarketer at the time, and my predecessor was leaving, and then I saw the role, and I was like, this could be a fun transition, marrying my research and analytics and marketing work with my passion for research and knowledge of working with the region. It was a really a good transition. It was just, and then getting up to speed on all the other topics, because I don't just cover marketing. It's marketing, e-commerce, even stuff with payments, now retail media, digital video. So, I mean, there's so many things you have to keep your eye on. But it was kind of really by accident, but a fun accident.
Yeah, it's that just, you just summarized a big part of why we're so much in the similar worlds like that, because we have to pay attention to very much the same things. And in fact, this morning there was actually an LGBT retail company based out of Australia that reached out to me. They're going to make their data and their advertising and so forth available for certain clients. And I thought, yeah, it's a trend that continues to grow that I don't think everybody's always so aware of. It's not just your Facebook and Google and so forth, that there's a lot of niche opportunities for companies nowadays.
Exactly. And I think that's always, the challenge. Even when I was in the marketing days as a practitioner, it's like there are just so many ways to reach people, how, and you see all these headlines, well, this is booming, this is important, this is the next. I'm like, well, if everything is the next, then everything's not the next. It's like, I have an urgent task. It's, well, if everything's urgent, then nothing's urgent then. And I think that's, we're at such a unique point in time where we have so many options and ways to reach really targeted and segmented audiences. And I think as within the advertising space, especially even as we get down into the LGBT space, it's even more important to really identify as a brand, how do you can make meaningful connections and use these data points, use these platforms to really connect and engage. So I think I'm always saying your data is your best ally in life.
I hear you. But you were just down in Advertising Week in Mexico, Advertising Week LATAM, I think. And but those are great opportunities.
Yes, it was they had one in New York. I think that's the more popular and well-known one here. But yes, and so Mexico City, this was their 5th year. So I've gone every year since I started launching it. So it's really been interesting to see kind of the evolution as well of within just 5 years, how far digital has changed and evolved and really impacted. Where at the time we were talking about, a bit of programmatic and video and social in that realm. And now we're talking about AI and the impact of this and retail media and CTV or connected TV. And, in some of those aspects, it is still nascent. So retail media is booming, CTV is booming, but there are still nascent. How do you convince more traditional advertisers and mindsets in there to really adopt and come up to the times? But I mean, it's a great opportunity just to connect, and you really hear, as myself, this is around the time I write my 2024 trend report. So it's also an excellent opportunity just to see what is what is on the what is the industry really talking about? I mean, last year I could think it was like half CTV, half retail media. This year it was really dominated by AI and CTV. So you kind of see where, what's top of mind. So as someone covering this, it's like, okay, I think no, I have to cover it now. If everyone's talking about it, it would just be imprudent not to. But yeah, I think it was a very great event, and really just to connect and exchange ideas and figure out ways just to collaborate in the year ahead.
Well, I could tell you love travel both for work, but what's funny is that when I was researching a little bit today, just to see like what is he up to recently, we were both in Greece on vacation and personal travel, but at the exact same time in August this year. And we even took very similar pictures.
Yes, we did. I think that classic windmill pose, a little, everyone. But yeah, you have to. It's like going to, I mean, granted, as a native New Yorker, I have yet to go to on top of the Empire State Building, but it's like if you're in New York, you got to go to the Empire State. You got to do that. You just, you got to take a picture by the windmills.
I hear you. I love seeing that. But I think this is great, and like I was saying before, is that I think it's wonderful that you're able to kind of get your story out there to maybe just for some of the folks that haven't seen you at a conference, at least over the last few years. And but personally, I look forward to being able to reconnect again at one of these things here in New York in the next few months.
I do too. I as well, and it's always always a pleasure to connect with the wider audience within our community, both on the LGBT side and those in the marketing advertising side, and all of us little nomads in between that fall into both worlds and connecting. I think I've connected with some people more. We both live in New York. I've seen them more in Mexico or Brazil than I have in New York. I'm like, guys, we live in the same city. This shouldn't be this difficult.
It's always that way, isn't it?
Always that way.
But no, thanks so much for being here, and look forward to seeing you.
I look forward to seeing you too, Matt. Thank you again.
So good.